Alright guys, a shrimp po' boy. And let's continue on where I left off in episode 2. I said if you allow these vapors, if these vapors are able to, with all that turbocharging, and they carry that static charge acquired by this until they get to the reactor itself, then another combination of effects will start happening. Once inside the reactor, to be specific, the middle pipe, that's this reactor pipe. Remember, this is the exhaust. Exhaust comes in here, travels one path, comes out this way. The reactor pipe is this, again, this narrow pipe that's got the rod inside. So, the rod in this reactor pipe acts as a venturi, which is basically a narrowing of a space or a hole that makes fluids flow into it speed up. The vapor-air mix speeds up and spirals around that rod due to this venturi effect, which that's the space between the outer surface of the rod and the inner wall of this reactor pipe. The vapors are traveling up one direction, and you got that exhaust coming in and going around it in a different direction. The hot mixes of gases are spiraling around that reactor pipe, and this is copying the pattern of how twisters, hurricanes, and tornadoes work, making a high wind in the middle pipe, and it's all under vacuum, so this is already affects even greater. And this windiness is the high wind effect in the reactor pipe is due to hot and cold gases coming together. You see it happen. You'll see it like hot smoke hitting a little cold air. It makes a little twister spiral off your bonfire. And there are other ways of seeing that effect. They're all twisters, tornadoes, hurricanes. They all have this principle to them. It's how the twisters managed to form in the first place. So, that's how they go. Excuse me. Just tired. So, this creates strong enough windiness around that rod to make it hover and spin. It can. Spiraling gases can create windiness and pick shit up and hover it, or fling it about in worst case scenario. For example, if you got hit with, it doesn't matter how many sit-ups you did that morning. If you got hit with a Volvo, you're done for. No matter how much you bench pressed that day, you got hit with a Detroit powered old school Chevy pickup truck. You're fucked. So this high windiness making the rod hover and spin, on top of being a venturi, that speeds up the mixture even further, and this extracts the kinetic and heat energy out of the exhaust gas as it comes down the opposite way through this wide pipe around the reactor pipe here. The other function of the rod is to invoke not just the venturi effect, but raise the vacuum in the region the rod hovers in to increase the speed further. The opposite happens too. When you raise the vacuum or drop the pressure, The fluid flows in, it speeds up. So vice versa will happen. This rule, this law, this physics law in fluids is called the Bernoulli principle. Now this will speed up, and due to the various factors, including shear stress on the fluids, make them spiral and rub along the surface of the reactor rod and rub in the inner wall of the intake pipe to fuel the said reactor. Eventually, what happens if you allow static electricity to build up in the vapor air mix? By the time it gets to this reactor, for example, this one, for example, sparking will happen. The sparking will convert static electricity into electric current. Same effect happens in lightning. Rubbing your ass and your back against a felt or whatever, or a certain type of recliner materials, and then popping your thumb on a wood heater, a steel wood heater. You do it enough times, you will kill nerve endings and pain receptors in your thumb or finger and induce neuropathy. But you will light up a room brightly a good number of times each time you do it. But first several times it hurts like hell. I've done it. So what happens when you have ions, electrons, the corpuscles of the electrical lines of force that act upon them pass through a wire coiling around an iron bar? Faraday's law acts on that iron bar, making it into an electromagnet. When this sparking stuff happens, and there is remnant magnetism in the reactor rod, the reactor pipe, and the exhaust pipe, where the around where the rod and exhaust pipes magnetic north and south ends match, but the intake pipes north and south are opposite. In other words, this is south, the rod south, the reactor pipe is north. And on this side, the exhaust pipe's magnetically north here, and the reactor rod is north, but the reactor pipe in the middle this rod sits in is magnetically south here. So you're looking at opposites attract for magnetics, and electrostatics, opposite charges rubbing generate sparks. That's how that works. Opposite charges rubbing makes electric sparks. Opposites attracts is ideal in magnetics. You will cause Lenz's law to manifest. Once Faraday's law happens on the rod, Lenz's law will manifest counter-electromagnetic fields on the two pipes. But you got to have that opposites match on the metal piping and the rod. And you have to have opposite charges rubbing against each other in the vaporate making area to ensure this is successful. This makes two more electromagnetic fields, since they will conduce a bit of current, which due to remnant magnetism in the pipes lined up properly. The other magnetic fields will already have their paths for them to move and do their things established. This also accelerates or speeds up the spiraling of the vapor air mix around the rod. Since you got various liquids in vapor form and they flow together at varying rates alongside each other, being spiraled fiercely by these other factors I mentioned, sped up, you already have a sheared flow, and it's axial or parallel and alongside to and axial or parallel to and alongside the rod and the path of the inner pipe. If these effects can manifest and they all can mess with each other, this is where the really wild sounding claims start to come in to be factored in. A potential plasma pitch is said to form just a little magnetically south of the center of the rod, just a little magnetically south along here, at the center, magnetically south of the middle of the rod. Now that's pretty cool. Okay, what's pretty cool is when you have a shear stress on a solid, it'll deform it. When you have different sections of a plasma flowing against one another at different rates, shearing against one another, to make a shear flow, it does the opposite to a plasma pinch. It stabilizes it. Really wild. There are physicists making fusion reactors based off of this combo of principles already. They have been since 1997. Now this unironic shear flow stabilized plasma pinch field reformer claim is wild and has some very nutty sounding implications to it, but that's what's essentially been claimed by people, and when they theorized about it and looked at all the wild shit they experienced in their fuel reactors, their replication of this, they brought it back to Pantone, Paul Pantone, and then he said, well, that must be what's going on, and he went with that, naturally. And that's what essentially has been claimed by the inventor once he got this kind of feedback from physicists and engineers and people who supposedly replicate these effects in this reactor. And again, I'm just stating the more extravagant sounding claims of the GEET. Now, theoretically, this is technically not impossible. But we do need to run some serious experiments to confirm if we can reproducibly manifest this exact wild combo of effects in physics together in this way. We need people building these things, test running them on their pieces of equipment in their yards and stuff like that, doing exactly as I said in other videos and this video series, including this video in particular, and how to burn new ones in the last episode, then give their results out. Now, as sketchy as this will probably sound to you, I do have a list of clues to help you and see if these effects are more likely to be possible, if not outright are being recreated in your build if you choose to do this. So, and I will get into these effects in episode. This is episode 3. It's going to be episode 4. This is coming up. Thank you for watching.